The station floated quietly near the edge of known space. It was a busy place where humans and aliens worked together. Eric, a young human engineer, had been stationed there for 6 months. He liked machines more than people. Fixing systems, tuning engines, and building small tools kept him calm. While others went to the lounge or chatted in the halls, Eric stayed in the workshop. Among the many species on the station, there was one that always drew attention to Zoleri. They were tall, strong, and had dark, shiny skin that looked like armor. They came from a warrior world where honor and strength meant everything. Most people stayed away from them, but one Zoleri woman didn't stay away from Eric. Her name was Zoleri, just like her species. That wasn't her real name, just what others called her because it was easier than saying her full name. Zoleri watched Eric for weeks. He was different from other humans. He didn't brag. He didn't try to impress anyone. He just worked. And when she asked him questions, he answered simply, without fear. That made her curious. One night, after a long day, Eric sat at a small table in the engineering bay. He had grease on his face, and his shoulders slumped from tiredness. Zoleri walked in silently and stood beside him. Human, she said in a deep voice. He looked up, surprised but not scared. Hey, Zoleri, something wrong? She shook her head. I want to share time. Your kind does this at night, yes? Eric blinked, confused. You mean hang out? She tilted her head. Yes, share warmth. Understand your ways. Eric chuckled softly. Not tonight. I'm beat. Long day. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Then a small smile formed, sharp and confident. You challenge me. What? Eric asked, now more confused. You said no, she replied, her voice calm but excited. Where I come from. That means prove your strength. I accept. Eric stood up slowly, wiping his hands. No, I didn't mean it like that. I'm just tired. But Zoleri was already walking away, her back straight, her steps proud. I will return, she said. He stared after her. What just happened? The next morning, Eric walked into the workshop and found a strange device on his desk. It wasn't human-made. It hummed softly and had glowing blue lines. A note was attached in blocky English. A gift from my people. Prove your skill. He looked around. No one else had seen it. Zoleri wasn't there. For the rest of the day, she showed up everywhere Eric went. In the mess hall, she brought him food spicy and strange, but she watched him until he tried it. In the repair bay, she stood beside him, silently handing him tools before he even asked. During a systems check, she asked to join him on a patrol through the dark maintenance tunnels. You don't have to follow me, Eric said nervously. I must show I am worthy, she replied. Worthy of what? She didn't answer. Soon, whispers began around the station. Other crew members watched with wide eyes as the Zoleri woman followed the quiet human engineer. Someone joked, she's courting him. Another said, she thinks he challenged her. The truth was somewhere in between. Eric asked his friend Lena about it. She was a human pilot, smart and always honest. She thinks you issued a challenge, Lena said with a grin, and now she wants to win. But I didn't. I just said not tonight because I was tired. Yeah, but in her culture, that means something else. Now she's trying to impress you. Good luck. Eric sighed. How do I fix this? Lena laughed. Maybe you don't. Maybe you see where it goes. That night, Eric sat alone in his room, thinking. Zoleri had done nothing wrong. She hadn't pushed him or made him uncomfortable. In fact, she had been kind in her own intense way. She shared food, tools, and her time. Maybe, in her culture, that was how someone showed interest. This is so weird, he said aloud. Still, part of him was curious too. Zoleri was strong, proud, and serious. But she also listened. She learned words in English just to talk to him. She never laughed at him or looked down on him. And now, because of a simple phrase, she thought they were in some sort of bond trial. Eric leaned back in his chair. Not tonight, he whispered, repeating the words. Then he smiled a little. She really took that as a challenge. He didn't know what would happen next, but he had a feeling things were just getting started. The next few days on the station became stranger for Eric. Scifi didn't back off after that night. Instead, she became more active, more focused. Wherever Eric went, she wasn't far behind. She never interrupted him or caused problems. But she was always there. When he worked in the repair bay, she helped without being asked. She handed him the right tools, moved heavy parts easily, and once even lifted an entire generator by herself. When the lift broke, "You don't have to do all this," Eric said, wiping sweat from his face. "I must show I'm useful," Scifi answered with a serious face. "You already are. But this isn't a contest. Everything is a contest." She replied firmly. Eric sighed and looked at the tool in his hand. "You're really not gonna let this go, huh?" Scifi tilted her head. "You said not tonight, so I must try harder. I will earn the right." He shook his head slowly. He didn't understand all the rules of her culture, but it seemed like this challenge had become personal for her. Later, while walking through the main corridor, Eric saw a group of crew members gathered near the observation deck. They were watching something. When he got closer, he saw that Scifi had set up a training zone with crates and barriers. She was sparring with two strong guards, both from different species. Eric's single quotes' mouth dropped open. She was fast, powerful, and graceful. The guards could barely keep up. After just a minute, they gave up, raising their hands. Scifi turned toward the watching crowd and, without smiling, said, "I grow stronger for him." The crowd turned their eyes to Eric. He felt like sinking into the floor. Back in the lounge, Lena nearly choked on her drink from laughing. "She's showing off for you. You started something big, buddy." "I didn't mean to. I just said I was tired." "You're the only one who talks to her like a normal person," Lena said, calming down. "Maybe she likes that. Maybe she likes you." "Great," Eric said, rubbing his face. "So now what? How do I explain that there was no challenge?" "You don't," Lena said. "Just respect her culture. Talk to her. Be honest. But don't try to win or lose. She'll figure it out." Eric nodded slowly. Maybe Lena was right. He had never seen Scifi treat anyone else the way she treated him. She tried to learn his ways. She listened, and even though her methods were a little intense, she hadn't been rude or forceful. Later that evening, Eric found a strange box outside his door. Inside was a small crystal sphere with tiny lights moving inside it. It was warm to the touch. A note was written in neat English: "To calm your thoughts." "She gave me a stress ball," Eric said, holding it in his hands. "Okay, that's actually sweet." He kept the gift on his desk. The next day, Eric saw Scifi again in the engine room. She was adjusting a coolant pipe with strong but careful hands. "Morning," he said. "I brought balance to the pressure flow," she said proudly. "I saw." "Thank you." She stood tall and looked at him. "Am I closer now?" "Closer to what?" "Earning your agreement." Eric scratched his head. "Can we talk for a second?" Scifi nodded and followed him to a quiet corner of the engine room. "I think we have a bit of a misunderstanding," he said. "When I said not tonight, I wasn't challenging you. I was just tired." Scifi looked confused. "But the words mean prove yourself, do they not?" "Not in my culture," he said gently. "Sometimes we just need rest. It's not about testing anyone." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, "Have I often?" "Did you?" "No, not at all," Eric said quickly. "You've actually been very kind, just intense." She lowered her head a little. "I wanted to honor you. Your way is soft, but not weak. You are smart, calm. I respect this." Eric smiled. "Thank you. And I respect your strength. Really, I do. I just didn't know what you thought I meant." Scifi slowly lifted her head again. "If there is no challenge, do you still allow me to stay close?" Eric looked into her eyes. "Yes, I don't mind you being around. Just no more public sparring shows, please." She gave a short nod. "Understood." As they returned to work, Eric felt something shift. They weren't just the crew members anymore. They were beginning to understand each other not through words alone, but through actions, respect. In time, whatever this was between them, it wasn't over. In fact, it might just be the beginning. Since their talk in the engine room, things started to feel different between Eric and Zaleri. It was no longer a misunderstanding. They both knew what had happened and what it meant now. They were slowly learning about each other in a new way. It wasn't about challenges or tests anymore. It was about understanding. Xela or I still visited him often. She didn't follow him around like before, but she stayed close. Sometimes she helped with repairs. Sometimes she just watched. Her silence wasn't uncomfortable. It felt calm, like having someone who simply wanted to be near. One afternoon, Eric was working on a broken water filtration system. The pipes were jammed and the control panel kept blinking with errors. Zaleri stepped beside him without saying a word and handed him the right wrench. "You knew I needed this?" Eric asked, smiling. "I learned the pattern of your hands," she replied. "When they move like this, you always reach for that tool." He laughed. "You've been studying me." "Yes," she said without hesitation. "You are interesting." He nodded. "You're not so bad yourself." After they fixed the system, they sat outside the maintenance area. Eric drank water from a bottle, and Zaleri chewed something from a small pouch she carried. "What is that?" Eric asked. "Dry meat from my world. Bitter, but strong. Can I try?" She handed him a small piece. It smelled strange, but not bad. He bit into it and made a face. "Wow, that's intense. You get used to it," she said. Amused, they sat in silence for a while. The sound of the station's hum filled the background. Eric felt peaceful, and Zaleri looked more relaxed than ever. "Do your people often bond with other species?" he asked. "Rarely," she said. "We are taught to stay strong and protect our bloodlines. But some of us see the galaxy differently, and you're one of them." "I choose my own path," she said firmly. Eric smiled again. "I like that." The next day, Commander Sylvan, a tall, feathered alien who ran the station, called Eric to the command deck. When Eric arrived, he saw Sylvan looking at a display with concerned engineer Eric. Sylvan said, "We've received a warning. Small pirate ships were seen near Sector 7. We must prepare. Your team needs to check the emergency systems immediately." "Yes, Commander," Eric replied. As he turned to leave, Sylvan added, "And keep Zaleri informed. She has requested to join the response team." "She has?" Eric asked. "Yes. It seems she has chosen to guard you." Eric left the room, feeling a little nervous, but also touched. When he told Zaleri, she nodded and said, "I will not let harm come to you. I can take care of myself, you know." "I know," she replied, "but I still choose to protect you." For the next 2 days, the crew worked hard to prepare. Energy shields were tested. Backup systems were checked. Weapons were cleaned and loaded. Eric spent most of his time making sure the emergency lights and doors would work in case of attack. During one late shift, he stayed behind alone in the lower deck. He was trying to fix a power converter when the lights flickered. Something fell off. He stood up slowly. Then he heard it moving in the vents above. His heart started to beat faster. He turned and saw a shadow drop to the floor. It wasn't a crew member. It was a small alien in dark armor, holding a stun blade. A pirate, before Eric could shout. The pirate rushed at him. He ducked, rolled, and grabbed a nearby wrench. He tried to defend himself, but he was no fighter. The pirate knocked the tool from his hand and raised the blade. A roar filled the air. Zaleri crashed through the side door like a storm. Her eyes burned with fire, and in one smooth move, she slammed into the pirate. The blade clattered to the floor. She grabbed the pirate and threw him against the wall. The pirate didn't move after that. Eric sat on the floor, breathing hard. How did you know?" "You didn't return on time," she said, panting slightly. "I followed your scent." "That's kind of amazing." She helped him up, her hands strong but gentle. "You are safe. That is all that matters." He looked at her closely. There was dust on her armor and a small scratch on her arm. "You're hurt," he said. "It's nothing." "Still, thank you." For the first time, she looked unsure. "Did I go too far again?" "No." Eric said softly, "You saved me. I think we make a good team." She smiled then. Not the proud, warrior smile, but a quiet one. From that night on, everything changed between them. Not because of words, but because of trust. After the pirate attack, everything on the station became more serious. Security patrols doubled. Crew members were told to stay alert. Even the lights in the hallways seemed dimmer, as if the station itself knew danger was close. But between Eric and Zeleri, something had shifted in a better way. She was no longer just the warrior watching him. Now, she was someone who had fought for him, protected him, and stayed close even when things were hard. And Eric was no longer just the quiet engineer. He was someone she cared about, and he had started to care just as much. For the next few days, they worked side by side, not as strangers from two worlds, but as partners. Zeleri didn't talk much, but when she did, her words were clear and honest. Eric liked that about her. There were no games, no tricks, just truth. "You move differently now," she said one evening as they walked toward the storage deck. "How so?" Eric asked. "You watch the corners. Your steps are lighter. You are preparing for danger." "Maybe I'm learning something from you," he said with a smile. "Or maybe you are stronger than you thought." He looked down, feeling a little shy. Her words meant more to him than he expected. In the main control room, Commander Sylvan called for a meeting. All department heads and key crew were present, including Eric and Zeleri. "We've confirmed that the pirate ship is still in the area," Sylvan said. "They're scanning us, looking for weak points. They may try another attack." There was a quiet murmur in the room. "We'll need full system support," Sylvan continued. "Engineer Eric, your team will handle the internal safety grid. Miss Zeleri, you will be on defense detail near the command center." Zeleri gave a short nod. "Understood." As the meeting ended, Eric walked beside her. "Looks like we're in different zones." "Yes," she replied, "but I will still watch for you." He paused, then said, "Same here. If anything goes wrong, call me. I'll be there." For a brief moment, Zeleri touched his shoulder. It was the first time she had done that, and it wasn't out of protection. It was gentle, almost quiet. Affection. The next morning, Eric and his team worked hard on the safety systems. The station had backup power cells, shield locks, and pressure alarms. Everything had to be perfect. One mistake could cost lives. He worked late into the night, running tests and checking wires. Finally, he leaned back and stretched. He reached for his water bottle and found another small item beside it. A folded cloth from Zeleri's world, marked with a red pattern. A message. Eric smiled and tucked it into his jacket pocket. Across the station, Zeleri stood at her defense post. Her eyes scanned every shadow, her ears alert to every sound. She had served in many battles before, but this one felt different. She wasn't just protecting the station. She was protecting someone important. Her mind drifted for a moment. She remembered the way Eric laughed when he was tired, the way he talked to machines like they were old friends, the way he had looked at her after she saved him, not with fear, but with something warm. Then the alarm rang. Red lights flashed. A voice echoed over the speakers. "Breach in Section 8. A known ship docked." Zeleri was already moving. Eric heard the alarm too. His heart jumped, but his hand stayed steady. He ordered his team to lock down the engine rooms. Then he ran to the backup controls. The station might need to be sealed in certain places. He had to make sure people were safe. Suddenly, the lights went out. Total darkness. "Emergency power not responding," one technician said. "Manual switch." Eric shouted. He rushed to the panel and pulled the emergency lever. Soft blue lights returned. Enough to see, but not much more. Then he heard footsteps, fast, coming toward the hallway. He grabbed a metal rod and stood ready. But it wasn't a pirate. It was Zeleri. She looked out of breath but focused. "I was on my way to the command center. Then I heard you might be trapped. You left your post. I told you, I will always watch for you." Eric didn't know what to say. Double quotes. "I shouldn't leave you," she said. "But I couldn't ignore the fear in my chest." "You were scared?" he asked softly. "Not for me," she said. "For you." He stepped closer. "I'm okay. We'll finish this together." They moved as a team, again Zeleri clearing the path, Eric making sure systems stayed online. Step by step, they brought power back, sealed the dock, and locked out the pirate signal. When the danger passed and the station lights returned to normal, both of them stood silently in the corridor. "Thank you," Eric said. "You don't need to thank me," Zeleri replied. "I know," he said, "but I want to." She nodded slowly, and for the first time since arriving at the station, she smiled not as a warrior, but as someone who had found something worth holding on to. After the failed pirate attack, the station slowly returned to normal. Systems were fixed, patrols were set, and people began to feel safe again. But for Eric and Zeleri, something had changed deeply. They had faced danger together not as soldier and engineer, but as partners who trusted each other. News of Zeleri leaving her post to protect Eric spread across the station. Some crew whispered behind their backs. Others smiled when they passed by, but Eric didn't care what anyone thought. He had started to understand Zeleri more with each passing day. She wasn't just a strong alien warrior, she had feelings. She showed care in her own way. And now, Eric was sure she had done everything not to prove herself anymore, but because she wanted to be near him. That morning, Eric stood outside the hydro deck, waiting. He had asked Zeleri to meet him there. When she arrived, she looked curious. "Is there trouble?" "No," Eric smiled. "I wanted to show you something." He led her into the hydro garden, one of the few peaceful places on the station. Green plants grew under glowing lights. Small water streams ran between the rows. Zeleri looked around. "I've never been here. Most people don't come," Eric said. "But it's quiet and beautiful." She touched one of the leaves gently. "It smells alive." They walked side by side through the garden pots. Eric pointed out plants from Earth. Zeleri listened, touching each one with care. She had never seen real Earth plants before. "Why bring me here?" she asked. "Because you've shown me your world, your strength, your honor. I wanted to show you something from mine, something simple." Zeleri stopped walking. "You have seen my way. Now I see yours." He nodded. They sat on a small bench under a glowing tree. Silence filled the space, but it wasn't awkward. It was calm. "Do your people share gardens when they like someone?" she asked suddenly. Eric smiled. "Sometimes. Or we just talk. Maybe hold hands?" "Hold hands," he gently offered. "His hand, like this?" Zeleri looked down at his hand, then slowly placed hers in his. Her hand was larger, rough from training, but she held him softly. "This is strange," she said. "But not bad." Eric laughed lightly. "That's a good way to say it." Just then, a call came through Eric's communicator. It was Lena. "Hey Eric, Command wants a full report on the power systems. Can you stop by soon?" "On my way." He answered. He turned to Zeleri. "I have to go." She stood. "I will walk with you." As they left the garden, Eric felt her hand brush his again, not to hold it, just to feel it once more. In the command room, Sylvan listened to Eric's report, nodding at each point. Zeleri stood beside him like a quiet shadow. When the meeting ended, Sylvan spoke directly to her. "Your defense during the breach was noted. However, leaving your post is a serious matter." Zeleri straightened. "I accept responsibility." Sylvan paused, then looked at Eric. "You're both lucky the pirates didn't reach Central Systems. Your bond seems strong." "We're learning," Eric said. "Good," Sylvan replied. "But learn fast. This station needs both of you sharp." Outside, Zeleri didn't speak at first. Then she said, "I failed. I left my duty. You protected me. I think that counts too. But in war, leaving your place can mean losing everything." "This isn't war," Eric said. "And I think you followed your heart. Sometimes that matters more." She looked at him with a quiet expression. "My people don't talk about hearts." "Mine do," he said. "And mine's been changing." She blinked slowly. "Because of me, yes?" They walked in silence again, but this time it felt heavier, like something unspoken was waiting to be said. Back in the workshop, Eric found another gift near his desk. This time, it was a metal pendant carved with a small symbol aligned in a circle, one above the other. He picked it up and turned to Zeleri. "This yours?" She nodded. "It is a mark from my home. It means chosen, chosen. When one offers this to another, it means they are no longer alone." Eric looked at the pendant in his hand. You really mean that? Yes, she said. But only if you accept. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he stepped forward and carefully placed the pendant around his neck. It sat just above his shirt. I accept, he said softly. For the first time, Scifi looked nervous. But when he smiled at her, her confidence returned. They didn't need to say more from now on. Their connection was clear, not a challenge, not a misunderstanding, but a choice. After Eric accepted the pendant from Scifi, things between them became quieter but stronger. They didn't talk about it much, and they didn't need to. The symbol on his chest said enough. Many crew members noticed it, and even though some were surprised, most respected it. One afternoon, Eric and Scifi were working on the outer relay tower. It was located on a long platform that stretched from the side of the station. Stars filled the sky around them, and silence wrapped the space like a soft blanket. Only the sound of tools clicking echoed across the metal surface. You are focused today, Scifi said as she adjusted a power line. Just want to finish early. Eric replied, I promised Lena I'd help her with a scanner problem. Scifi nodded. You help many. That's what engineers do. She paused, then said, my people only help those we bond with. You help everyone. It's normal for humans. Eric said, but maybe it's also part of who I am. She looked at him for a moment, then said, it is why I noticed you first. Eric smiled. After finishing the repairs, they sat on the edge of the platform, legs hanging over the side. It wasn't dangerous. There was a magnetic field to keep them safe, but it still gave the feeling of floating in space. Did you ever think this would happen? Eric asked. This us, working together, sharing time, this connection. Scifi thought for a while before answering. No, I came here to serve, to follow orders. But then I saw you, and you were calm in a storm. Funny, Eric said, because you were like a storm walking into calm. They both laughed quietly. The stars above twinkled like tiny memories, too far to touch but close enough to feel. What happens after this mission? Scifi asked. Your time on this station ends soon. I was thinking about that, Eric said. I got a message. There's a new science ship launching. They want me on it. Long-term exploration, quiet work, smart people, lots of systems to fix. And I don't want to go alone. Scifi's eyes met his. You mean, I want to ask, if you join me, he said, not because of a challenge, not because of duty, but because I want you there. She didn't answer at once. Her fingers tapped lightly on the metal railing. My people don't believe in leaving their post for another, she said softly. But I already did, for you. Do you regret it? No, she said. I would do it again. He reached out and held her hand gently. Then come with me, he said. That night, Scifi spoke with Commander Sylvan in private. Eric didn't know what was said, but when she returned, she nodded once, permission granted. She said, with honors, you got honors, I saved the station. But more important, I did not lose who I was. A few days later, as they packed their things, Lena came to visit. So you're really going? She asked Eric. Yeah, we launch in 2 days. And she's going with you? Yes, Scifi said firmly. Lena smiled. Well, don't break anything out there. And if you do, let him fix it. Eric laughed. Thanks for always being honest. Thanks for being brave enough to say not tonight, Lena said with a wink. The day of departure arrived. The new science ship was quiet and beautiful. Not a warship, not a trade ship, just a vessel built to learn and explore. Its crew was small but skilled, from many different species. Eric and Scifi stood on the main deck as the engines powered up. Stars stretched beyond the viewing glass, waiting for them. We're really doing this, Eric whispered. Yes, Scifi replied. A journey without a map. Do you miss the challenge? She shook her head. You are still a challenge. But now, I enjoy it. He smiled. I never thought someone like you would care about someone like me. I care because you are not like anyone else. As the ship left the station and moved into the stars, Eric looked down at the pendant around his neck. Chosen. Not because he was the strongest, not because he won a fight, but because he had shown something else: honesty, care, and trust. and in return, Solari had offered him something rare. Not just protection, not just loyalty, but her heart. As the stars grew bright around them, their hands touched again, strong, gentle, and full of something new. Not a challenge. A beginning. The science ship glided through deep space, quiet and steady. Its mission was to explore far systems, study space phenomena, and keep peace. But for Eric and Solari, the ship meant something more. It was a new beginning. Away from the old station, away from whispers and misunderstandings, this was a place where their story could grow. Each day brought a new task. Eric worked in the systems lab, solving energy problems and upgrading ship functions. Solari joined the defense crew, teaching others how to handle emergencies and move as one team. But even with their duties, they always found time to meet. Sometimes, they sat under the star dome, watching planets pass in the distance. Sometimes they ate together in the dining hall, sharing food and small jokes. Their connection had grown quiet and deep, like the calm between stars. One evening, the ship passed through a strange radiation field. Systems went dark for a moment. Lights flickered, the air filled with static. Eric rushed to the control room. A few circuits had burned out, but the damage was not serious. "Someone bring me a sensor kit," he said. Before anyone could respond, Solari stepped in beside him and handed him the exact tools he needed. He smiled. "You always know. Your face tells me everything," she replied softly. While he worked, she stood close, watching over him, not as a guard, but as someone who simply wanted him safe. She didn't speak, but her presence gave him strength. When he finished, the lights returned and the crew cheered. The captain, a calm alien named Trellis, stepped forward. "Good work, Eric and Solari. Your timing is perfect as always." "Thank you, Captain," she replied. Later, Eric sat alone in the observation deck, holding the small pendant she had given him, the symbol of being chosen. He remembered how it all started. One simple phrase, "not tonight," had led to everything that followed. He chuckled to himself. "I had no idea." Solari entered quietly and sat beside him. "You laugh. Just thinking about how this started. It feels like a dream." "Not a dream," she said. "A path. A strange path," he added, "but one I'm glad I followed." She looked at him, serious but calm. "I have something to ask. Anything," he said. "On my world, when a bond is strong, we mark it with action, not just words." "What kind of action?" She pulled out a small band made of woven metal, shaped like a ring. It is not just jewelry. It means forever." Eric's heart skipped a beat. "You're giving this to me, only if you want it." He took the ring, feeling its warmth. It wasn't heavy. It felt right. He looked into her eyes and smiled. "Then I have something for you too," he said. He pulled out a small music chip. It held simple earth melodies, songs that humans shared when they cared about someone. "We share gifts in our way too," he said. "And this is from my heart." She took it carefully, turning it in her hand. "I will keep it always." They sat in silence again. This time not because they didn't know what to say, but because everything had already been said. The next morning, the captain made an announcement. A small planet nearby had strange readings. They would stop there to collect samples and map the area. It would take 3 days. Eric and Solari were chosen for the surface team when they landed. The planet was calm and beautiful. Tall blue grass moved in the wind. Light clouds floated above. Eric took readings while Solari watched the surroundings. They worked smoothly, trusting each other completely. At sunset, they sat on a rock ledge, looking at the glowing sky. "Do you think others will understand us?" Eric asked. "Some will," she said. "Some will not. But we don't need all of them, just each other." He nodded. "You once saw my words as a challenge." "Yes. And now I see them as the start of something greater." He held her hand. "So what if I say not tonight again?" She looked at him, smiling now. "Then I will still take it as a challenge, but only the kind that ends with laughter." They both laughed, and the sound echoed across the open field. From that day on, wherever the ship went, they went together. And while others told stories of battles and stars, Eric and Solari had their own story. It didn't start with love. It started with confusion, challenge, and trust. And in the quiet space between stars, it grew into something rare, something true.